The following may not be suitable for all audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Sex Offenders Registries to be implemented. The Sexual Offences Act was amended in Parliament last night, creating 2 registers for convicted sex offenders, one for law enforcement and another that the public can access. In presenting the amendment for debate, Attorney General Faris Al-Rawi said the government recognized the need to operationalize laws to protect the vulnerable in society. Al-Rawi quoted a completed court matter which saw the first person being placed on the Sex Offender Register. He said although a Sex Offenders Register was created under formal Attorney General Ramesh Lawrence Maharaj, it was never operationalized because it was badly drafted. We cannot now go back in time for the 20 years that were lost and put people on a register. But what we can now do is ensure that law enforcement has a full register, which is not available to the public, and that society has available to it another form of register, which is what the bill proposes to do. The Attorney General said the amendments would see the public having access to the Public Sex Offenders Register and the police having access to the National Sex Offenders Register, both of which will be maintained by the police commissioner. Al-Rawi said the amendment also includes a clause making it mandatory to register sex offenders who are deported to Trinidad and Tobago. In Clause 6, we ask for the extraterritoriality to apply that those sex offenders falling within the registrable category in the bill into Category 1 as it was amended, that we treat with sex offenders from abroad. Why? Because we know that there is a repatriation, a deportation of persons who commit sexual offences in other regions, so therefore we wish to make it without a doubt that extraterritoriality applies, he said. As for the process for a sex offender's name to be placed on the registers, Al-Rawi explained, you go to court, you're on a charge, a court convicts you, you are a sex offender. You don't become a registered sex offender until you are put into the system after having served time, or if the sentence is suspended and you are told by the court that you must register as a sex offender. You go to the police and there you register, and at that point you become a registered sex offender. He said the National Sex Offenders Register, when coupled with legislation for PH taxis, which is yet to be brought to Parliament, will allow police to scan a QR code to determine whether a PH taxi driver is a sex offender. Al-Rawi said the legislation also makes allowances for the right of an appeal of the decision for a convicted sex offender to be placed on the registers. The legislation also includes a clause to deal with fake news, the AG said. We put the offense for basically fake newsing. My friends on the opposite will know this well, where fake news becomes news. Any story that you tell becomes news. This country is at a dangerous point where it is not a matter of what is the truth. It appears to be what is the version of the truth you offer. He said this provision also takes into account situations where a victim approaches a court to have the offender's name kept out of the register. The parent law already has the provisions that you cannot go into the website if you are a child or if you are dealing with cases of incest, he said. The amendment also makes provisions to criminalize misuse of information placed on the registers and increases fines for breaches of the legislation. We are moving from $50,000 to $250,000 for breach of regulations, deleting 6 months and substituting 5 years, because we amended Section 63 of the Interpretation Act, bringing this in line with the amendments we made last year. The AG again signaled his intention to bring legislation to criminalize voyeurism, revenge porn, and make adjustments to the consideration of bail for sexual offenders. In her contribution to the debate, opposition MP Anita Haynes noted that many of the contributions from both sides of the House were along a similar vein. Haynes said, although the country will benefit from the 2 sex offenders registries, solutions to the issue of sexual assault are not grounded in legislation. I want to urge members in discussing members to gender-based violence, sexual offenses, please do not minimize it by saying if we had more stringent laws, we would not have this problem. This is simply not true. Do not promise that to a population. We could pass all the laws here today, and we could still have all these problems tomorrow. So let us be serious when talking about these issues, because they are real, and they have real potential for disrupting our society, she said. Haynes said education on issues of conflict resolution and gender issues from a young age is the key to creating a cultural shift in society. Let us stop putting our resources at the end of the problem and start targeted approaches at the beginning, and we will see again the kind of results we hope to see, she said. What's your verdict? Do you think adjustments should be made to make sure there are no loopholes? Or do you believe it needs no adjustments? Man charged for professing to be a criminal and acting as such. A 27-year-old man has been charged with the offense of professing to be a gang member by associating himself with gang-related activities in order to intimidate other persons. According to a statement from the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, Aziz James, alias Crime Boss and Crimey of East Dry River, Port of Spain, appeared virtually before Magistrate Maureen Babulal Gafour at the Port of Spain Magistrates Court yesterday and was granted bail in the sum of $170,000 with a cash alternative of $20,000. James was ordered not to appear on social media platforms, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, or even a dating site. The case was adjourned to August 6th, and he is to report to the Beeson Street Police Station every Thursday and Friday between the hours of 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. James was charged after an investigation was launched by the Special Investigations Unit SIU into the contents of a video which was uploaded to Instagram on June 2. Assistance was sought from the Police Cybercrime Unit and statements were recorded from several persons. Investigators had a consultation with the Director of Public Prosecutions, DPP, where they received instructions to arrest and charge the suspect. It is the first charge under the new Anti-Gang Act. On July 7, investigators executed a search warrant at the home of the suspect, who was arrested and taken to the Beeson Street Police Station. On July 8, James was formally charged for the offense professing to be a gang member by associating himself with gang-related activities in order to intimidate other persons contrary to the Anti-Gang Act 4 of 2021, Section 5. This exercise was coordinated by Deputy Commissioner of Police, Investigations and Intelligence, MacDonald Jacob, and Senior Superintendent Christopher Papanet. It was spearheaded by Superintendent Michael Veronique and other officers of the SIU and the Interagency Task Force, IATF, under the direction of Legal Officer Zahir Ali. Mom's boyfriend allegedly erases stepson. A 22-year-old Laventille man has been charged with the murder of his 5-year-old stepson, Rayshawn Armani Bowen. Darrell Clark is scheduled to appear virtually at the Port of Spain 8 Magistrates Court on Monday. Clark of St. Barb's, Laventille, was charged with murder yesterday, following the advice of Director of Public Prosecutions, DPP Roger Gaspard. The child was found unresponsive on November 22, 2019, at Goban Trace, Upper St. Barb's Road, Laventille, where he lived with his mother and the accused. Extensive and intensive inquiries were conducted by officers attached to the Homicide Bureau of Investigations Region 1, spearheaded by Inspector Lynch and Inspector Jones, which led to the charge of murder being laid against the accused yesterday. Nurse Kelly Phillip sent back to St. Anne's Hospital for psychiatric evaluation. Kelly Phillip, the nurse accused of murdering Princesstown mother Khadijah Flement, has been returned to the St. Anne's Psychiatric Hospital. During Phillip's virtual court appearance yesterday, San Fernando Senior Magistrate Armenia Dionaran Singh remanded her to the facility for a psychiatric evaluation. Phillip, 30, was discharged from the institution on Thursday, following which homicide detectives received instructions to charge her. On Monday, Phillip's sister Faith Rambusa, 18, and brother Kyle Iron Beast Delande, 27, a scrap iron dealer, both of Greenhill Avenue, Tarodale, St. Madeleine, appeared in court. Rambusa was charged with Flement's murder, while Delande was accused of disposing of Flement's body. Flement, 25, left her Lothians Road home on June 7 to visit her 8-year-old daughter at a friend's apartment. 3 days later, Flement's aunt reported her missing to the Princesstown police. Police subsequently discovered burnt human remains, including bones, a skull, and teeth, which they believed to be Flement's, while searching agricultural lands situated at Reform Road, Gasparillo, but DNA results are still pending. Days later, Phillip was arrested but was in quarantine at her home under police guard. However, on June 18, she stripped naked in front of her apartment window and was acting out. Later that day, an ambulance took her to the San Fernando General Hospital, and she was subsequently transferred to the St. Anne's Hospital for evaluation.
She needs a rock rap.
Phillip's matter was adjourned to July 23, when the court is hoping to get a report on her mental health, while her sister is expected to reappear on July 19 and her brother on July 30. It seems to me that this judge has allowed this suspect to manipulate her into thinking that she's mentally ill. Where is the proof of her mental incapacity? Was she previously diagnosed with mental illness? Let them put forward that proof that she was previously diagnosed with mental illness and she was being treated at some point in her life for mental illness, because otherwise this is a serious act that she's putting on. Now, this judge must have been thinking when she saw her on screen, oh my, what a difference. She must be mentally ill. Look at the deterioration. Oh my. No. This woman has not been able to go to the salon and get her hair done. So yes, she is looking busted. A big difference from how she looked before, but she's not mentally ill. She was able to orchestrate a serious, premeditated crime. She was able to convince her brother and sister, both, to get involved in this crime with her. And she was able to hold down a high-stress job. She was also able to take care of Khadijah's 8-year-old daughter with no problems. But now that she's been charged, she's mentally ill. This woman has proven time and time again to be a drama queen. And therefore, I believe that this is an act, and this will continue to go on as long as it takes to convince anyone that she is mentally ill. Simply an act. She obviously thought that her brother, being a scrap iron dealer, would have been able to dispose of the body. That's why he was chosen to do that particular part of the crime. You know, scrap iron dealers normally venture into a precipice. So therefore, maybe she thought that he was going to put the body in a precipice, as they did with Andrea Barrett. Is justice going to be denied for Khadijah? Khadijah left her home thinking, oh, I'm going to visit a friend. I'm going to visit my daughter. And she was betrayed in the most brutal way you could ever think of by people whom she knew very well. What's your verdict? Do you believe that this woman is actually mentally ill and not responsible for her actions? Or do you believe that Khadijah should get the justice she deserves, and this woman, this reprobate, should spend the rest of her life in prison? Prosecutor accuses defendants of seeking to cover up their involvement in the crime. The lead prosecutor in the trial of 2 men accused of murdering 6-year-old Sean Luke as teenagers has claimed that they sought to implicate another teenage neighbor in the crime to cover up their involvement. Assistant Director of Public Prosecutions, DPP, Sabrina Dugdeen Jaglal, made the claim as she presented her closing address before High Court Judge Lisa Ramsumer Hines yesterday. Dugdeen Jaglal said, Akil Mitchell and Richard Chatu have been pointing fingers at others from the start, and when they did, fingers were pointing back at them. From the onset of her address, Dugdeen Jaglal sought to respond to questions over a second foreign DNA profile that was found on the sugarcane stalk used to assault Luke and on intimate swabs taken during his autopsy. Mitchell was linked to bodily fluids found on Luke's underwear, while Chatu could not be linked to the second profile that was found during DNA analysis. During their closing addresses, Mitchell and Chatu's lawyers claimed that the scientific evidence was a smoking gun in the case. They sought to suggest that it belonged to state witness Avinash Babulal, who claimed that he saw the duo and Luke divert into an abandoned sugarcane field, which bounds their community, while they were on their way to fish by a river. Dugdeen Jaglal referred to the claims as a flare gun intended to confuse Justice Ramsomere Hines as she pointed out the second profile was a partial that could not be used by the state's DNA expert to perform comparative analysis. She also noted that the trace profile could not be linked to the sexual assault of Luke like Mitchell's bodily fluid, as it was sourced from a skin cell. If Avinash Babalal is a villain Richard and Akil are making him out to be, then his DNA would be lighting up the report like a Christmas tree, she said. She also sought to explain why Babalal may have given conflicting reports to police before he eventually implicated Mitchell and Chatu. It is so crazy for Avinash Babalal to be scared of being implicated in something that he was not involved. They were children, Dugdeen Jaglal said, as she pointed out that Chatu was not claiming that he was coerced by police into implicating himself and Chatu. He is not a perfect witness by any stretch of the imagination, Dugdeen Jaglal said, as she claimed that his important assertions were somewhat confirmed by Avis Pradeep, another teenage resident who went on the trip and testified during the trial. Dealing with Chatu's alleged confession, Dugdeen Jaglal questioned how he was able to provide details of the crime that were later confirmed by scientific evidence if investigators only gave him tidbits of information and advised him to fabricate the remainder, as he claimed when he testified in his defense. She also suggested that if investigators were seeking to fabricate the statement, they would not have risked having it video recorded, as there would have been a strong possibility of him making mistakes. If the police did not do the video recording, you would have heard thunder and lightning from the defense, she said. Dugdeen Jaglal asked Justice Ramsomere Hines to believe his original statement in which he claimed that he reluctantly agreed to link Mitchell with Luke after Mitchell, propositioned him for sex and he refused. Dugdeen Jaglal asked Justice Ramsomere Hines to believe his original statement in which he claimed that he reluctantly agreed to link Mitchell with Luke after Mitchell propositioned him for an encounter and he refused. Addressing how Chatu would have known that Babalal would have invited him to go fishing on the day that Luke went missing, Dugdeen Jaglal said he took advantage of an unexpected opening. The fishing trip seemed random. It was an opportunity he grasped, she said. She also claimed that Chatu was able to utilize the trust he had built with Luke and his family over years of living near to them to lure Luke on the trip. Sean trusted Richard. The ones we trust are sometimes the ones with the greatest power to harm us, Dugdeen Jaglal said. She said that she believed Chatu when he claimed he tried to stop Mitchell from beating Luke before he assaulted him, as Chatu, must have believed that Mitchell was only going to assault Luke, not take his life, as previously agreed between them. Luke of Henry Street, Orange Valley Road in Couva went missing on the evening of March 26, 2006, and his decomposing body was found 2 days later. An autopsy revealed that he died from internal injuries and bleeding arising out of being assaulted with a cane stalk. Chatu, who was 16 years old at the time, and 13-year-old Mitchell, who is the stepson of Chatu's brother and was staying at their home, were charged with the crime. Mitchell is being represented by Mario Merritt, Randall Raphael, and Kirby Joseph, while Evans Welch, Kelston Pope, and Gabrielle Hernandez are representing Chatu. Andrew Bola and Sophia Sandy Smith are also prosecuting. Justice Ramsomere Hines will now take 2 weeks to consider the case before she determines the duo's guilt or innocence on July 23.